I was struggling severely with my disordered eating of binging and restricting and purging. I had adrenal fatigue. I had memory loss, brain fog. I had no peace when it came to food in my body, and my body was literally begging me for something. I was barely even 10. Children don't need words to sense stress. When you're a kid, you don't really have access to other things you can control, but you can control your food. So if you're not really getting into the food part, a lot of girls go to the over-exercising part. It takes like one teeny little comment. Oh, wow, you've been working so hard. Look at all the weight you've lost. What about, oh, you look really strong. You look really vibrant. You look really healthy. There's other descriptors instead of like, you look really thin. Nice job. You've lost weight. Because I got celebrated for that. The only rule is like, don't make a comment about the body. Like, make it about her essence. This isn't to blame the dads, right? We're not looking for perfect parents. We're not looking for perfect dads. Everyone is doing the best that they can. But again, it just starts with a little bit of awareness and maybe a new emotional intelligence and a new conversation or a way to look at the situation. And that's it. Yeah.
Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I started this podcast to give fathers the tools to understand and connect with their daughters. Dads, you have such an impact on your daughters. I'm here to support you by providing the daughter's perspective and bringing on experts and guests to help you raise happy, healthy, and confident daughters. All right, girl dads, let's get into it. Amber Caudle, welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm so excited to have you on. We recently connected on a deeper level and got to find out more about you and what you're working on beyond the cafe. And it's just wonderful work. And I think it's really important for the dads in the audience to hear. So with that, I would love for you to start off by just introducing yourself to the audience and telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what led you to open the best ever local healthy cafe and write your book called Hungry.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. So my name is Amber Caudle, and I, have a restaurant in the South Bay in Hermosa Beach called the Source Cafe, and I opened it 14 years ago. And a little backstory about me, I've always had a deep love of food since early, 7, 8 years old. And even earlier before that, I started cooking in the kitchen with my grandma. And I always knew at a very young age that I wanted to be a chef and had a deep passion for food. And God blessed me with a beautiful career in the restaurant business. It's the only industry I've ever been in, and I fell in love with the restaurant business. And at the same time, the other side, I also had a really challenging relationship with food that also started at a really young age, at around 8 years old. And I started sneaking food and hiding food. And where my journey took me was after years of going through the classic chef lifestyle of grueling 80 hours a week. And I pushed myself and worked myself into having an opportunity to move to California 25 years ago to open up my first restaurant, Mediterraneo. And I was the executive chef there for 10 years. And I sunk all of my heart and soul and passion, blood, sweat, and tears for 80 hours plus a week until my body took a crash, a halt about 15 years ago. And this was before I opened up the Source. About a year before I opened up the Source, I had over-exercised and overworked myself into 2 torn hip labrums. And I had adrenal fatigue. I had memory loss and brain fog. I was struggling severely with my disordered eating of binging and restricting and purging and addicted to diet pills and compulsively dieting and over-exercising. And I had no peace when it came to food in my body. I was drinking too much alcohol. I was taking Ambien to sleep, and my body was literally begging me for something. I was inflamed. I was in so much pain, and I was overall unhappy and very depressed. And my body took a deep, deep crash. And basically it was a wake up call to say like, hey girl, like we've got to change our ways. And I went away to a spiritual fasting retreat, and it basically was one of my first dark nights of the soul. And I got cracked open and had quote unquote my first spiritual awakening. And I started meditating and doing breath work and realizing, oh my gosh, there's got to be a different way. I was really desperate to feel better in my body. And at the same time, I loved my career at Mediterraneo and I had built such a life and a name for myself, but I was starting to lose the joy and the passion. I came back from the desert from my retreat, dove into the healing powers of food and superfoods and started to get messages from the divine and started getting deep into my meditation practice. Like, oh, you know what? You've abused food your whole life. It's time to take your power back from food. And with that, and this is a very short story. A lot of my book is about how I opened up the source of all the years of suffering with my disordered eating and feeling like I wasn't enough. And how could I possibly open up? Because I was like, okay, I want to open up a health food cafe, quote unquote health cafe. I want to have high quality ingredients, organic ingredients. I want to heal myself with food for the first time. I know other people in the community, and I was told, don't open it. Restaurants fail. You don't, who wants health food? And so I did. I opened up the source 14 years ago because of my desire to heal myself. And here we are 14 years later. So my intention for the source always, and one of my passions is I really love to help nourish and fuel people's bodies, really inspire everyone that what we put in our body matters now. I do believe we either pay now or we pay later. And so that's one of the missions of the source still today. And here we are today. And what led me to write my book, Hungry, was all the decades since I was 8 years old and I just turned 50 of struggling with disordered eating. I thought that something was seriously wrong with me. And I carried so much shame around my purging, my binging, and my restricting. And a lot of it I did in private. I mean, most of it I did in private. And I actually hid my disordered eating until I was 38. And I came out and I told my family and they didn't believe me. Yes, they knew I was obsessed with my body and I loved dieting and over exercising, but they didn't know the deep darkness that was happening behind the scenes. And so towards the end at around 38, 39, when I was like, okay, you know what, there's got to be a deeper reason for this pain and this suffering. And my therapist at the time said, you know, you're going to help women one day. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that because I'm so deep in it right now. And so I then fast forward about 7 years ago, I met my teacher that cracked me open in a modality that I'm trained in to help remove trapped trauma and stress and tension from the nervous system. And at that point, I had found neutrality with binging and restricting, but I was still living in a hypervigilant state. I was living in a survival state. That was just my norm. I didn't know this language of regulated nervous system, but I was still emotionally eating. I was still body obsessing. I wasn't feeling in neutrality in terms of feeling at peace with myself. And he said, it's time for you to write your book. And so that's when I went home. It was during COVID. I went home and I downloaded my first copy of Hungry, and I wrote the whole book in about 3 days. And my intention with Hungry was, you know what, if I can just help one woman not go through the pain that I went through. And that is why I wrote Hungry. And so the essence of Hungry, yes, it's about food. I share about my unraveling and decades of shame and emotional survival and patterns that kept me stuck from and disconnected from myself. But I also show how I found the courage to stop fighting myself. And really the essence of Hungry is really about emotional survival, self-worth, nervous system healing. And I do believe there's a universal desire that we share to feel safe, connected, loved, and to be at peace with ourselves. And so that's the essence of Hungry. And here we are now. And the book was just released about a month ago. So yes.
Yes. On your birthday, right?
Yeah, on my birthday, on my 50th. So
fun.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate all that context. And I think this is really, really important because I don't know the exact stats, but I think almost every girl has an eating disorder at one point in her life. Like it's a large, large number of girls, but it's really what I want the dads listening to hear about is the environment that tends to cause it. And also, you know, what to do about it, signs, and we can get into all that later in healthy eating. But this environment that is not only a cause potentially of eating disorders, but just this narrative that girls can carry for the rest of their lives about themselves and the stories that they tell themselves and what they base their self-worth on, and really what goes down in a household environment that is typically, you know, not intended to be negative, but just happens to really leave a mark on us girls and eventually women. So I I want to start there with you because you've done a lot of research into this and really like the home environment and creating a space where your daughter can have a regulated nervous system. And so, you know, I guess the first question that I have for you would be, why does the home environment matter so much when it comes to a girl's relationship with her body, herself, and her food?
Okay, great. I'm glad we're starting here. So I just want to say, this is not coming from a clinical explanation. This is coming
Hmm.
from my living proof of how it affected me of being a daughter that had a dad. And just to say that my dad was amazing. I grew up in a very beautiful household and I was very loved, and everyone did the best that they could with the tools that they had. Right.
Hmm.
And so I got to uncover this when I was 40 years old with one of my teachers, of realizing that a lot of my conditioning as an adult had started as a child. I mean, when we're children, we don't realize. And so the home environment, I mean, children don't need words to sense stress. And I grew up in a very loving household, a normal quote unquote household, right? My parents got divorced at 18, but they fought behind closed doors. And so I never heard them fighting, but there was definitely an energy of stress in the house. And there was a layer of chaos also, of like rushed chaotic energy. And, you know, I believe that we pick up on these things. We pick up on our dad's stress, our mother's stress. And again, as a 7 or 8 year old, I didn't know why I was starting to sneak and hide food. All I knew is I felt like I couldn't get enough food. And I just want to say that, daughters' issues with food it doesn't start with the food. There's something that's prompts it, right? And then food
Hmm.
becomes the strategy or the pattern. And so for me, you know, I grew up with a family that my parents were very hard workers. My grandparents, everyone was hard workers. It was do, produce, succeed, get straight A's. And so I became the good girl and the overachiever. And I also was praised for my looks and being skinny. I mean, I grew up at a time where it was like Kate Moss and drinking Diet Coke, and it was be skinny. And so I got a lot of praise for I was a dancer. I wasn't great at sports, but I wanted to excel in dance and make my parents happy and my dad happy. And I wanted to be complimented on my looks. And I was always told that I was skinny. If I was skinny, that meant I looked pretty. And I became very helpful. I started cooking at a very early age to be helpful, and helpful led me to my nervous system. Ooh, the more you help and you give, the more you're going to feel connected and loved. And so of course, then I'm going to continue to overgive and help and people please, because my body's associating that with connection and love. And so in terms of my home life, when I was younger, that stress I picked up on, and my nervous system created strategies. Like I was saying, the people pleasing, perfectionism, um, overcompensating, overgiving. And then patterns I created, that's where the binging, the sneaking, the restricting started, and the over exercising. And, you know, you don't do that consciously without
Right.
realizing it. I created these strategies to feel safe and connected when it felt like very chaotic in the house. I mean, looking back, like we can feel our parents' energy. We can feel the stress, even if it's behind closed doors. We can still feel it. And then I wondered why until 8 years ago I was stuck in codependent relationships, because I know you said, how does that translate then into, as how do we carry that on? How do daughters carry
Hmm.
that on? Well, I carried my disordered eating for 30 years because that's what made me feel safe and comfortable. And I also, as an adult, came into the more I was exhausted and the more I proved and pushed and succeeded meant that I was worthy and I was lovable, because that's what I equated it to when I was a kid. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's really
yeah,
interesting because I think a lot of people probably assume that disordered eating is related to comments around body and food, but it can be so much more than that. To your
yeah,
point, it's anything that creates kind of a dysregulated nervous system, or also comments that daughters associate two things together. So they associate praise and self-worth with doing doing good in school and having good grades or achieving things, right? And that association of, okay, I am loved when I do this, rather than I am loved for who I am
Right.
is what creates these kinds of potential causes for disordered eating and desire to control something. And food is usually something that a lot of girls, turn to control because it's their body too and their
Body.
image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the fastest and when you're a kid, you don't really have access to other things you can control, but you can control your
Yes.
body and you can control your food. So if you're not really getting into the food part, a lot of girls go to the over exercising part, right? So, or I'm going to be a perfectionist and I'm going to be a good girl. Like all these are just patterns. They're just different languages of what your nervous system is using because doesn't know how to regulate and soothe.
Right.
Right.
Right. And what we were talking about earlier, a lot of this starts with very good intentions. And I think dads are doing the best that they can with the information that they have, which is what you said earlier. And I think it's so true. That's why this episode's not supposed to, shame dads or like make you feel guilty. It's just bringing awareness to what happens on a psychological level and a subconscious level to girls, especially at a young age. And they carry these stories into adulthood and then kind of discover them later and then figure out, oh wait, that's where that came from.
I like that you said that, Maddie, because this isn't to blame the dads, right? This isn't like, we're not looking for perfect parents. We're not looking for perfect dads. Everyone is doing the best that they can. But again, it just starts with a little bit of awareness and maybe a new emotional intelligence and a new conversation or a way to look at the situation. And that's it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one in particular that I would love for, dads to hear, because I think it's something that's so innocent and common too, is the achievement praise. And it's like, when she gets good grades, you tell her how proud you are of her, right? And then when she does good in sports, same thing. But then balancing that with praise or pride when she's doing the little things, like when she does get a B-, but she worked hard, praising the effort, not necessarily the outcome, so that she feels good. And even just praising her for being herself, right? Like, because you just don't want to basically create those associations for her where it's like, okay, this equals good. This equals my dad is proud of me. And and I think that a lot of times, obviously you would never intend that. You would never want her to feel this association, but that's just kind of how our psyche works and how we operate. And so, yeah, just interesting and something to be aware of.
Yeah. And I think too that we're reflecting on this is, what about saying, wow, I love how kind you are. I love how big your heart is. I love how you make me feel and people feel when you walk into the room, right? It's like, I love your curiosity, right? I love your laughter, your wisdom, right? And like, oh, and you know what, daughter, you don't have to earn my love. I mean, those conversations I would have loved because I was only praised by my dance and by my beauty and by my looks and by my grades. And I was smart. And so I knew that it was like, I'm going to get straight A's because I'm going to get my dad's attention. And yeah, so I love that because it is so innocent. Of course, you're allowed to say, oh my God, great game. I'm so proud of you. Crushed it this last semester and you got all A's. So proud of you. But going into like her essence, the qualities and yeah.
Yeah. And just making sure that she knows that there's nothing that she could do where she would ever lose your love. So,
and then disappointments can happen and it doesn't mean that I love you any less.
Yes, exactly. Just making sure that she knows that you're always going to be there for her and that your love is everlasting and that you love her for her, not for what she does or what she accomplishes or what she looks like or how much she weighs. And those kinds of things really set a daughter up for success in terms of her body positivity, her self-image, her self-worth, and all the buzzwords that everyone is really tuning into these days. So, but speaking of like specific comments around the body, and kind of things to look out for, things to say, things not to say, and why. Would love to hear from you about kind of your experience and what you've learned as you've studied these kinds of things as well.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to not specifically comment on a girl's body, any woman's body, but a young girl's body. As soon as someone says, wow, it looks like you're really filling out those jeans. Oh, it really looks like those jeans are a little tighter. Because and I'm using comments from my clients, but also that was told to me, wow, you look a little heavier this summer. Oh, wow, you look really skinny. you're really pretty, like anything like that. Or, relatives or anyone saying, God, you got thunder thighs. You've got, any of these types of
Mm-hmm.
things. Like if a little girl hears that, we take it to the races. It just takes one comment of somebody making a comment that maybe we feel our breasts are too big, or we've developed a little bit quicker than any of our friends. That was me. Maybe my butt was bigger. I mean, any of those comments, even as a joke, was we'll take her to the races. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that, and it's, again, you can compliment and say, wow, I really like that dress. You look really pretty today. Like, I like your new hair. Like, obviously, like, compliments are great.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's always about her beauty, then that's what her identity is going to become. And so,
Yes.
especially if it's a little girl that's like, you're so pretty, and she hears it 100 times 8, you're so pretty, you're so pretty, you're such a good girl, you're so pretty. That little girl is going to take it to the races. And now she is going to be the perfect little good girl, not showing, I'm going to be happy. And we call it sickly sweet. We're happy on the outside, and inside it's like, ah. And so then we go into, like, for me, it was drugs, alcohol, and food. I was like, I don't know what to do all this. Right. I just have to be perfect and happy and good. And I was enraging inside. I didn't know that until
Yeah.
but yeah. And I think there can be a lot of comments around, parents can make comments around their own bodies also. So I think that it's both ways. I think I think it's so delicate with the comments about a woman's body at every age. I did a post on Instagram a while ago because I just remembered the one comment that somebody told me when I was 9. And from there, I started to diet and to starve
Mm-hmm.
myself because
Mm-hmm.
somebody thought that I had gained weight over the summer. And I was like, I was barely even 10. So it takes like one teeny little comment. And it's like whether she loses weight or gains weight, because the losing the weight thing too can be a trigger. So, oh, wow, you've been working so hard. Look at all the weight you've lost. So what about, oh, you look really strong. You look really vibrant. You look really healthy. There's other descriptors instead of like, you look really thin. Nice job. You've lost weight. Cause I got celebrated for that.
Mm-hmm.
I got celebrated for that. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to find the right
Well, it
words.
is. Even with an
Yeah.
adult and even with my friends now,
Yeah.
somebody that's struggling with their body and they've lost weight, I'm going to say, you look really strong. You look vibrant. You look healthy. You look
Yeah.
embodied. You look empowered, right? Not like, wow, you look really thin. You look really skinny. Nice job on the weight loss, because it can be, because then it's this feeling of like, well, now I have this ideal body that people think I'm perfect and pretty and beautiful. And now I need to maintain maybe an unrealistic size. And that puts a lot of stress, and that can amp up the
Mm-hmm.
disordered eating too. And
Definitely.
if you combo that with a parent that is constantly talking about their own body, then we absorb that also,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's, yeah. So,
And I think it's a lot of that association that we were talking about earlier, where it's like this equals this. So it's like
yeah.
skinny equals good. And when
Mhm.
you're hearing things like that, or this part of your body equals good, or too much, or not enough. And then you start to ask yourself, how can I be good? How can I
Yeah.
be my best self? And then that leads to disordered eating and
Mhm.
restricting and or binging, all the things. So,
It can lead for me. I went to drugs at an early age. I went to alcohol. I did not know how to soothe myself. I didn't have the language for it. And so I just chose it was the same pattern. I just chose different. I just say like food was the language that my nervous system used to soothe, but it can be
mhm,
anything. It can be
it can be
codependent.
anything.
It can be codependent
Yeah.
relationships. It can be,
Yeah.
right. It can be, yeah. So,
Yeah, I think it's like with too many comments about or around what you look like or how you should be, there's this sense of not being within yourself. Like the daughter is not presently in her body. She is focused on the version that she should
mhm.
be and that she wants to be. And
Yeah.
so she's constantly kind of striving to be a different version of herself rather than being happy
Yeah.
with who she is as her heart and her soul and her and her body, and so it's tricky. And yeah, I mean, I had a ton of different comments on all ends of the spectrum too, and it's hard because even comments like around, oh, your thighs are so strong, like your
Mhm.
quads are so strong, like
Mhm.
that bothered me.
Yeah.
Then I was like, how researching how to get skinnier quads, and it's like that could have been a compliment by somebody, but that totally sent me in a spiral.
Mhm.
And so, I think just, yeah, a general rule of thumb is being really careful and cautious about ideally making zero comments directly about the body.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah.
The only rule is like, don't make a comment about the body. Like, make it about
Yeah.
her essence, or
Yes.
her
Yes.
strength, right? Her resilience, like, right?
Exactly.
Her vibrancy. Yeah. Her
Her
magnetism.
vibrancy. Yes. Like, because she does want to hear those compliments from you. She
Yeah.
wants to feel loved. She wants to feel like pretty and lovely and all those like good feelings, but it doesn't have to be a direct tie to something that she can associate with, okay, this equals pretty, right? Like it should be my heart equals pretty because this is who I am.
This is
So
who I am.
yeah. Very tricky dynamic, but again, really, really here to just bring awareness because
Yeah.
this is, yeah, it's really tough, I think, for dads to know what to say and what not to say, and also to understand the immense impact that words have on us girls. I think the weight that we hold words is so strong,
It is strong.
especially at a young age because we're so literal.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just really good to be aware of.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to messaging on social media and peers and, diet culture, there's just so many messages that daughters are receiving from external sources beyond the family. So, we've talked a little bit about what to do inside the home and how to have conversations around these kinds of things, but is there anything on a positive note that you think dads can do to kind of counterbalance this noise that they're receiving, whether you say anything or not?
Yeah, I think this is tricky, right? Because you can't control Instagram and you can't control your peers and you really can't control who's talking to her in what kind of way. And, the world and Instagram, it's always going to tell her she's not enough. It's the world. That's just unfortunately what it is right now, that she needs to be thinner and prettier and the diet and the whole thing. And so at home could be the place where she really feels safe, connected, and seen, going back to, you know, reminding her that, like, when she's at home, that she is enough and that she's perfect the way she is and that she doesn't have to earn, you know, love. And I think the safety part is when she's at home, making sure that, you know, that daughters feel so safe and seen and connected, and that continuing to have this emotional conversation of checking in and how's your heart and how are you feel, because I never really had those. I didn't have I didn't have connected talks when I grew up. It was like work and eat and go, like that was it. And go to sleep.
Hmm.
Like we didn't have there wasn't a room for big emotional conversations. And I think that could be really helpful, and just I think it's really creating a place of safety and security where she feels seen. And that's the best, because out in the outside world, we can't control anything. And knowing when she walks
Yeah.
home, she's perfect, exactly as she is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think one practice that I've becoming more and more familiar with
Yeah.
now is breath work, and
Yeah.
doing that with your daughter as a father, I think is a great way for her to feel that safety and feel the presence of now rather than, who she should be or, the future and everything. It's grounding, and it's a great tool for self-regulation too, so she can learn to trust how to, self-regulate rather than relying on others to feel this and that.
Yeah.
So just wanted to
I love
call
that.
that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
as another
I love that.
tool in your toolbox. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Even like my husband will do that. Like if I'm feeling stressed out, he's like, "Okay, let's do we're going to inhale for 3 and we're going to hold for 3 and then we're going to exhale for
Perfect.
3." And I'm like,
Do a little bit of
instantly
that.
better.
Instantly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
instantly. It's amazing
Yeah.
what that can do. Um so okay, I do want to talk a little bit more about disordered eating specifically because um I want dads to know what to look out for
Hmm.
if things are starting to form. Whether, again, there's no blame, right? Like if your daughter starts to pick up disordered eating, it's not your fault. Like
Hmm.
that's not what this conversation is about. But let's say, you've done the best that you can with everything at home, and now you're starting to see signs of disordered eating. I want to talk about what those signs are so that dads can just be aware and can maybe intervene before things, progress. And yeah, so what are some early signs that there's something going on, and what can dads do about those?
Okay. So some early signs would be wanting to eat alone, disappearing really quickly after meals, Always constantly body checking, especially body checking in the mirror. Obviously, if there's starting to have a lot of comments around the body, oh, I feel fat. Look at how fat my butt is. Obviously, that's a little bit more noticeable. You can start to notice, has there all of a sudden been a shift in more of a hyper fixation around calories, fat grams, sugar? Do you notice, if you're eating and all of a sudden she's not finishing her food, but she's pushing her food around on the plate? That's a really good tact of just pushing the food around the plate to kind of look like you've eaten, but you haven't really eaten. Has her exercise routine changed? Or is that, what else? Maybe withdrawing socially and wanting to be more alone
Mm-hmm.
can be a sign. And yeah, I think that, but really noticing too, like while you're eating, oh, wow, I've noticed that like she has not eaten her favorite food and something switched and she's pushing the bread to the side, or their dad is noticing, oh, she's feeling really guilty after she eats and she's starting to do that or throwing the food away. And when a daughter is saying, I just ate with a friend and I'm not really hungry, could be a sign, because I used to do that, which is like, okay, well, if you knew you were coming home to eat with your family at 6 o'clock, why'd you eat with a friend
Mm-hmm.
at 5 o'clock? And it was just something that I could do to get out of eating my meal. Right. And so there's just those type of things, getting up from the table really, really fast. So yeah, and they can
Mm.
be subtle. They can be subtle, and a lot of girls like to eat alone when they're going through. Um, I would have preferred to eat alone. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so what you can do is, well, the first thing you can do is start to create a little bit more safety in terms of the environment of, how does it feel when you guys are eating? Is everyone rushing and standing? Are there any meals that are sat down together? Because that's really helpful. And before you sit down, you don't have to pray and bless your food and all that, but maybe, oh, wow, great to see you. We're sitting down, we're having a meal, just here we are. Let's land here and we're going to have a meal, because I grew up in a very fast eating household where I felt like I could
Mm-hmm.
never get enough food. So it was very like stressful and chaotic. And so all of a sudden the food was done. And I was like, I didn't get enough food. So I'm either eating as fast as I could, or I would start to hide treats and stuff under my bed and I would just want to leave right away and I'd want to go eat. And that's when my binging started. So really the first thing you can do is start to create a stable environment around the act of eating. It's like, let's have at
Mm-hmm.
least one meal together where we sit down. We're not all standing around the refrigerator or the counter, shoving it in, and we're sitting down. If you do notice that your daughter has shifted and, her energy is off and any of these things are becoming more consistent, I wouldn't go straight to talking about her body and the food. I would
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, I notice you're not yourself lately. Does anything feel really hard right now? Like, do you want to talk about anything? I'm here to listen. It just feels like something has shifted, and wanted to see if you wanted to talk, get anything off of your heart. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously you might have to go deeper or get someone to help to go in with the daughter. Because I mean, listen, I wasn't one to really open up to my parents about my disordered eating. It can be very shameful. It can be embarrassing. You have a lot of guilt. You can feel like a lot
Yeah.
of really alone. So it's just kind of going in softly in terms of, why aren't you eating your food? Why didn't you finish that? That used to be your favorite. It's like, wow, I noticed something has shifted. You're not yourself lately. Right. And then you can go into, wow, if this used to be your favorite, what would you like to eat? So yeah, in terms of approaching the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so key, especially because like we talked about, a lot of times it's not even about the food. It's
It's
what's underneath. So if you can tackle that,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
the food issues start long after. Food is just
Yeah.
the symptom that comes up. Food is just the
Yes.
pattern that's come up. That food, it doesn't start with food. Food is the strategy that is helping the nervous system feel comfortable and soothed when the body and the young child doesn't know what else to do. And she might have no idea. Like, we sense stress and we sense chaos, but we don't really know what's going on. And so then we start to eat or restrict or do any of the other things that we do. So yeah, and honestly, my whole book, Hungry, is, it's not about the food at all. Food was
Mm-hmm.
the language of the hunger I was craving. And so as a kid, we don't know we're I mean, our nervous system is associating all the things that we talked about with being loved and connected. But as an adult, I realized that the hunger I was craving my whole life was to feel safe and connected and loved and worthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intimacy. I wanted to find peace with myself. I wanted to find God, right? And so we just choose different languages to
Yeah,
that. So yeah, it's definitely not about the food. Yeah.
it's not.
No.
Yeah. Um, and then in terms of building off of what you said about the signs and everything, I did want to share that, sometimes the daughter doesn't even realize what's going on. Like that was my experience. I struggled a little bit with an eating disorder when I was in college, and specifically when I went abroad to Australia. I was gone for like 6 months, and I think I lost like 15 pounds when I was there. And it was unhealthy eating is what caused it. And it was really, I was hiding it from myself even because I was eating 3 meals a day. But I was really focused on, and I'm sharing this just so that dads can be aware of this as well. But I was super focused on like vegetables and very low calorie
Mm-hmm.
foods in a large quantity. And then like being really minimal with other things like protein or carbs. So it was like just really big portions of things that really didn't have a lot of calories. And I wasn't calorie counting or anything like that. It was just, I was tricking myself to thinking that I was, doing good and eating healthy and like being my best self. And meanwhile, I was losing a lot of weight. And I actually don't really remember a lot of Australia, sadly,
Yeah.
because I feel like my body was really in a survival mode because I was not fueling myself properly. And when I came back to America, like it just kind of naturally, I let go of that and I started eating more regularly. But it was yeah, really interesting how it kind of creeps up on you and
Does.
takes control. And it's like, yeah, there's no fault, there's no blame. It's just something that I think we need to be aware of and know how to navigate and support and understand what's going on beyond the food. Because yeah, like you said, it's not about the
It's just
food.
not. I blamed the food my whole life. I was like, oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
It's not about the food. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not. And it can.
exactly.
It sneaks up and you don't really even realize like what's happening, especially the younger you are. It's like, wait a second. What? Yeah. I purposely eat
Exactly.
fruit and veggies. I went through that phase. It's like, oh, I know if I don't eat carbs and I don't eat enough protein, that I obviously will be thinner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad. It's just you're just trying to figure out things the best that you can. And I think that's something that we're all doing the best that we can.
Yes,
So
we are.
um to give everyone some grace, but yeah, just really important things to be aware of because this is super common. And even if it's just a little struggling here and there, it doesn't have to be this, really intense thing where your daughter needs to be hospitalized or something for it to be an actual issue. Like there's
Yeah.
so many like micro versions of this that I think that's what I'm trying to say here is just be aware because it sometimes it's not like super front and center and obvious. It's hidden and it's minor, but there's still things that can be healed on
Hmm.
the underneath.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I think that's important that you said because mine started slowly and then it went pretty aggressive late college. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think that's a very common time
It
for these
is.
kinds of things and it makes sense. Like you're
Yeah.
on your own for the first time. There's all these other, yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. um, and one thing that you kind of touched on earlier, but I wanted to zoom in on really quick because, um, it's important is sometimes these self thoughts that us daughters pick up on are from maybe a mom or even a peer or a family member. And it doesn't necessarily have to be direct comments about us, it's direct comments about them. And we're listening and we're hearing and we're observing. And maybe we look up to these people. And so when we hear them talk about their body in a negative light or something that they're ashamed of or they're fixing or they're working on or their relationship with food, we actually pick up on that and internalize it, and then it becomes our reality as well. So just being really aware of that if that's going on in the household, and if it is, like coming at it with a lot of love and grace the way that you would with your daughter, right? It's like what's really going on here because probably there's some internal self-regulation
Hmm.
struggles happening there as well.
Yeah. I mean, I know that for me on my both sides of my family, there's a long line of disordered eating. And so, it, I picked up on it on both sides. My dad almost was a restrictor. He was he was an athlete. And so he would take cans of tuna and just dump it on top of greens. And he was anti-salad dressing because of the fat. So I took that and was like,
Mm.
right. And then my mother, nobody was as hungry as me. Nobody really ate. There was a lot of comments around body, and not really being hungry and forgetting to eat and skipping meals. And it's like, yeah, we can say we forget to eat and we're not hungry, but like that's not normal behavior, not to eat all day and just eat at dinner. Oh, I didn't eat all day. I'm just going to eat now. Those are comments we pick up on. Or, well, maybe I shouldn't be eating 3 meals a day now. Or if a parent or a relative saying, wow, I ate too many calories today, I've got to start my diet on Monday, or this diet's not working, or I feel fat, or look how big my stomach is, or I messed up, or I can't believe I ate that brownie. Like I feel so guilty. I'm so bad. That food is bad. I mean, it's on and on and on that we pick up. And I was like just picking up. My grandparents started counting, or I learned about calorie counting when I was 7, 8 years old. And my grandfather used to count my grandmother's calories in front of us. He used
Oh,
to carry a book
no.
around. It's in my book. And I started to associate that. And I was like, whoa, everything is a mathematical equation. It's like, that's bad. That's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
And so, we pick up on behaviors, patterns, um, and emotions around it. Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
Like little sponges.
Yes, we are little sponges, especially when we're young. Um, and I don't know what you just said that reminded me of this, but slight tangent here. I just wanted to call out that, this cheat meal or guilty pleasure meal. What am I trying to say here? Basically, I just think that we should be aware of the language that we use around food, because cheat meal makes you feel so guilty about
Yeah.
it, and also that doesn't feel like a healthy way to think about food in general. But yeah, I do want to start getting into a conversation with you around what is a healthy way and ending on a positive note here. But I wanted to call that out because I'm thinking, wow, now that I really haven't thought of this before, but I'm like, there's so much guilt and shame
There's so much.
tied
Yeah.
into like cheat meal. And that's such a commonly used phrase. People say that all
It's
the time, like, what's
not.
your cheat meal? It's like,
Yeah.
that's not good to say.
It's not, I mean, I grew up like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that to your point, especially someone that's healed with disordered eating, like I had to let go of my list of 100 different bad foods and cheat foods, because it's
Hmm.
like and I think too is food's not bad. We over moralize food. So what does it look like to have a healthy relationship with food? You get to eat when you're hungry. You get to stop when you're full. Food can become nourishment and comforting. It can feel cultural and remind you of your family. I still cook meals for my grandmother and it feels very comforting, right? And like,
Mm.
and to be able to go out and celebrate and have the birthday cake or the French fries and the pizza, and then we don't have to talk about it, meaning like there's not guilt or we have to go on a diet. That was bad. That was a cheat Sunday. We get to have
Mm.
our cheat pizza on Sunday night. Just it's allowing yourself to enjoy food. I always talk about finding pleasure, enjoying food, because I stripped myself of over 30 years of finding pleasure in food. And oh my God, you know what? That's our favorite restaurant. We love when we go have that lasagna. Let's go out and have that tonight. That sounds so good, and celebrate. And so that's what
Hmm.
I think also loving and eating vegetables and quote unquote food that nourishes your body. We're not doing it because we're trying to lose weight and be on a diet. We're doing it because we really know that it feels good and it makes our body strong and vibrant. We're not trying to earn dessert or punish ourselves. And so being
Hmm.
able to maybe plan a meal with your daughter. What's your favorite meals that you want this week? Or getting into some meal prep together would be really fun. Or, hey, there's this really fun snack ball, a protein ball, and start to talk about food. And, um, oh, I love this because it's got healthy fat, it's got protein, it's got carbs, it's got fiber. How does it feel when you eat this food? Oh, I feel really strong when I eat this. I had a really good game today, or I studied
Hmm.
really well today after eating this, and having conversations like that around food. And you can have conversations around food of like, oh, Dad, I went out with a friend last night and I had this and I came home, my stomach hurt really bad and I felt like my day at school wasn't that great. And so we can talk about it because there can be food allergies and stuff. But the food still, if you have that experience, it's not bad. And so that's what a healthy relationship with food is feeling peaceful, allowing yourself to enjoy food. I think the sitting down and having a peaceful meal is something that I really never got to experience. So in terms of
Mm,
there's no devices at the table, right? We're
yes.
connecting and having conversation. We're engaged with each other, right? Eating when we're under stress or possibly being scolded at the dinner table is now going to put our body in a sympathetic state where we're not going to be able to metabolize and digest the food. So I love teaching and coaching a lot on what we eat is obviously really important, but the how we eat is also creates a
Hmm.
really healthy relationship with food. So I think that's
Yeah.
part of the healthy relationship with food of talking about enjoying food and allowing yourself to eat it, but also how are you eating the food with your family and your daughter? Yeah, like we talked
Yes.
about earlier. It actually makes a big difference in the relationship with food. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. The how behind how you're eating rather than just the
Wow.
what.
The what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes such
Yeah.
a difference. I mean, sitting down with no distractions, really honoring each other and honoring the
Hmm.
moment. And obviously life is busy and it can be really stressful, but can the stress happen before or after the meal? I mean, that was like such a big deal when I started to heal my relationship with food as an adult of getting rid of
Hmm.
anxiety, the indigestion, the constipation, the diarrhea, the bloating. If you've got a little girl that's constantly got stomach stuff, like there's some sort of gut stress, anxiety, something is happening that's
Hmm.
it could be a little bit of the food, but it could be a lot of the how we're eating and what's underneath and behind it too. So
Yeah.
that's a
The
bigger
emotional
discussion.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
We've
thank you so much. This
we've
is,
covered a lot.
yeah,
We've covered a lot.
we have. Yeah, it's can be a heavy topic, but
Yeah, it can
I
be.
think it's yeah, it's a really important one. I mean, this is something that people are struggling with all over,
Yeah.
and it's really important to just bring awareness and have practical tips and tools. Like we weren't just talking about how scary things are and then like leaving with no advice. Like it should be about, how to move forward and how to improve family dynamics at home and words that are spoken, the how of how we're eating, all those kinds of things, so that daughters can be living closer to their heart and their self-worth naturally, and relying less on food to solve emotional disturbances. And so, yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I do want to close with just one final piece of advice that you would give to all the dads with daughters out there.
Yeah, so we covered a lot today. And I do feel like I think we said this at the beginning, daughters aren't looking for perfect parents. We don't need perfect parents. And daughters probably won't remember every single conversation that you have with them, but she will remember how she felt in your presence. And she will remember how safe she felt and accepted and seen and loved, and the constant reminder of she doesn't have to earn your love, and she doesn't have to earn the acceptance, and she doesn't have to prove or shrink herself, right, for the love.
Hmm.
And I think that's the basis of to lead lives, and knowing that you're doing the best you can. I think just having this, listening to this conversation and bringing more awareness and having more honest conversations and really being able to step into that witness observation mode with your daughter and be like, oh, now I'm a little bit more aware that seemed a little bit different. That seemed a little bit
Hmm.
off. I noticed that we've only been praising her for her grades and her sports the last and her beauty. Oh, let's start praising for how kind she is in her essence. And so I think that's it. I think, yeah, thank you
Yes.
so much for having this conversation. It's such a there's a lot of emotional topics that we covered today. And like you said, it is sensitive. And I think remembering that everyone is seriously doing the best they can. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so thank you for having me on. And yeah.
Of course.
Uh,
Thank you, Amber. And where can everyone go to find your book or any more information you want to share?
sure. So if you're in the South Bay, you can come say hi to me at the Source Cafe. My book, Hungry, you can go to gethungrybook.com. And if you liked what you heard today, I go deeper into my journey, but you can claim my first chapter for free. And from there, I have other links to learn more about me and how the other work that I do. And I'm Amber Caudle LA on Instagram. And so I'm constantly talking about this journey of rebuilding trust with ourselves and finding peace basically with all aspects of our life. So,
Yes. Well, thank you, Amber. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
thank you.